Effective presentation skills are key leadership assets. Yet, many professionals, including physios, struggle with public speaking. Studies show that 75% of working professionals experience some sort of anxiety when presenting, making it one of the most common workplace fears. However, applying even the basics of presentation skills can take your presentation to a whole new level by increasing the message clarity, by increasing your own confidence, and by engaging with your audience. Do you want to know the tips of presentation skills? Then this video is for you. Hi, this is your Priya Physio, and this is the series of overview of essential skills for physio leaders. And today I'm going to cover presentation skills. But before we proceed, subscribe to my channel and hit bell icon so you get live updates of when my videos are uploaded next. Right? So let's dive in. I've created a mind map which I would like to share with you because it's a presentation skills webinar. I would like to use what is available to me. 10 tips that I would like to share with you. Content structure, audience awareness, verbal communication, non-verbal communication, use of visual aids, engagement and interaction, handling questions and feedback, time management, confidence and enthusiasm, and storytelling and emotional connection. We will try and cover 5 points in this particular video and make it part one of presentation skills because otherwise it will be an overload of information. And the next 5 points I'll cover in part two of the presentation skills video, which I will be uploading later during the week. So remember to hit that bell icon so that you get live updates of when my videos are uploaded. So let's go through our first point, which is content structure. Always remember, when you're presenting, you need three things mandatory: introduction, body, and conclusion. In introduction, what would you cover? You would introduce what your presentation is about. You would give a brief outline of what you're going to cover throughout the presentation so they know. It's like table of contents. And you would also tell them what to expect. Okay. So are you going to take question and answers? If yes, is it going to be throughout the presentation or are you going to leave it towards the end? Inform them so that your presentation is not being interrupted with questions. Number two, when you talk about the body is your main information that you wanted to deliver to audience. Okay, I've missed one point in introduction. Make sure you also cover background of that presentation if it is relevant. Next, body. Body is your main content. So what I'm delivering right now is the body of the video, where I'm going to talk in detail about every single tip that I have to share on presentation skills. Finally, when it comes to conclusion, which is the most important part, it helps your audience take away the message. It's the clear takeaway message of this is what we've covered and this is what you're going to do with the message. Okay, so a conclusion or a summary is equally important. So three aspects that you have to remember when it comes to presentation skills, content structure: introduction, body, and conclusion. Right. So let's go through the second point on audience awareness. Always ensure that you know the audience before you start making a presentation. Who are you delivering the presentation to? Is it going to be a face-to-face presentation? Is it going to be a conference presentation? Is it going to be a patient focus group presentation? Or is it going to be a presentation in your interview? It all depends on what you're presenting, where you're presenting, and that's how you tailor your message. So know your audience. One tip for those who are going to present in interviews: make sure you research your interviewers or interview panel before you go in, because you would know what they like, what they don't like, what their skills are, what their experiences are, and you can use some of those experiences, tips, techniques, and make sure you connect with them. That's your chance of connecting with your interviewers indirectly. Unconsciously, they will connect with you if you know about them. Okay. So tailor your message to the audience. Don't use too many medical terms or jargons, especially if you're delivering to a patient focus group. Okay. Next, use appropriate language. Use a language that people understand. Last one is check for engagement. Every now and then check for engagement. But if you want your question and answers to be left towards the end, okay, that's perfectly fine. Checking for engagement doesn't mean you're going to ask questions or take questions. Checking for engagement is How many of you relate to this situation? Raise your hands. It's a type of engagement. Okay. So you can use simple techniques like this. After audience awareness, let's look at communication. Now, we have covered communication skills in detail in my previous YouTube video last week. If you haven't already watched it, go and watch it now, because it will start making a lot more sense when you've done that video and then you come to this video, because you understand the rules of communication. Because I've talked in detail on what are the rules of communication. I also have my social media presence, so you can go through various communication skills videos and understand what those skills are and what are the basics of communications. But for presentation skills alone, let's focus on verbal communication here. Make sure your message is clear, you pace yourself, your tone is appropriate, and your volume is appropriate. Okay. What do I mean by clarity? Clarity of the message. So you have to ensure that what you're saying is clear enough and is audible enough. Okay, make sure it's a clear message with a clear call to action. Make sure you tell them what you are hoping to get out of the presentation or after the presentation. Is there any action that they have to take after the presentation? Okay, this usually applies in meeting scenarios where you've presented, but you want them to take an action. You want them to take it to their governance boards, or you want them to give a decision at the end of end of the presentation. So it all depends on what your presentation is. If it's a project presentation where you're outlining your project and you're outlining key tasks, okay, and it requires them to go back and liaise with subject matter experts, you have to be clear and tell them this is what is the message on. Okay, so you have to be very clear on what you're delivering and what you want your audience to do with that information. Next is pacing. Pace yourself. Okay, simply ask yourself, are you breathing during the presentation? You don't want to be running out of breath, or you don't want to be going too fast that people don't understand and you struggle for breath. Okay, so pace your presentation. Next is tone. Watch your tone when you're presenting. Is it a motivating kind of presentation, or is it a presentation where you are talking about emotional turbulences of a particular group of people? Okay, you have to tailor your message in a way that people connect to you directly and they understand, even if they're not present in the room, they understand the tone of your voice and they understand the emotions that it attaches. And last one is volume. Ensure you're audible enough if you're talking to a room full of people. Make sure even the last person can hear you. Check. And it's always good to prompt and ask if you're audible to the last person. If not, make adjustments as appropriate or what you have. If you have a mic, yes, use that. If you don't have one, then make sure you speak up loud, or make sure you also walk to the end of the room and you gain that engagement with them. So this is why verbal communication is important. As per the rule of communication, we know what percentage is on your voice. Okay, let me know in comments what that number is. What is that percentage when it comes to rule of communication? Next one is non-verbal. Now, non-verbal communication could be a body language. Okay, right? So non-verbal communication, you define, you are using your whole body when you're communicating. You don't just communicate with your mouth. If you do that and if you're not showing any hand gestures, it will look as if you're a news reporter and you have to maintain neutral expressions. Okay, that's not how it is. When it comes to presentation, your body language, your whole body should be involved in the presentation. So maintain eye contact with your audience. Okay, if it's a virtual presentation, I know it is very difficult to show your engagement with eye contact, but if you can, if you're talking one to one, make sure you're present, you're looking at, have your camera on in the first place. Okay, because I've seen so many people when they turn up in meetings, their cameras are off. How are you supposed to engage with anyone? Okay, number two, posture. Your posture talks a lot about your confidence. You don't want to be stooped, slouched when you're presenting. You want to be you want to be there as if someone is holding you with a string over the top of your head. Okay, or you're hanging onto something, and you will see your posture the way you are. Okay, that says a lot about your confidence. Okay, even if you lack knowledge in something, your posture will show your confidence, and that knowledge gap will be covered. Okay, that's a tip. Note it down. Your hand gestures. Hand gestures are equally important, but not too many. If there are too many hand gestures, you're likely to distract the person that you are, distract people or your audience. So you don't want to be using too many hand gestures. Okay. Depends on what your message is. If your message is a motivating type and you're trying to emphasize on one key point, you have to emphasize. Okay. Emphasize on a point. Okay. If you're trying to deliver a message, three key things to remember. Three. They will look at your hands. It immediately brings their attention back to the room. Okay. And your facial expressions, equally important. You want to be smiling. You want to be pleasant. You want to be present with them. You don't want to deliver a rehearsed presentation. Okay. There are so many people who practice and they take the practice part so seriously that they just stick themselves to a script. And the moment they miss one of the words in the presentation, their facial expressions drop, and that shows your confidence. And people can pick your expressions quicker than you think. So, non-verbal communication, four important aspects: eye contact, posture, gesture, and facial expressions. Now, let's move on to the last point of today's video: use of visual aids. They should be simple. Use bullet points and infographics where possible, and ensure visuals are relevant. What do I mean by simple? Use simple. Don't try and complicate things for you. A simple tool platform that you can use is easy enough. Now, I've used mind maps. I could have used a presentation. It depends on what you're familiar with. Especially if you're new to mind maps, you are not used to using mind maps at all, and you start to use it to impress people, you're going to fail because you don't know how to use it efficiently. That's why use a visual aid that you are familiar with, and it's simple enough. Even a flip chart, if you're comfortable with that, old school, go back to your flip charts or a whiteboard. Write on a whiteboard and explain your concepts, but make it simple. Don't complicate things for yourself and for audience. Number two is using bullet points and infographics. People always remember when you give information in bullet points rather than describing a situation or describing a whole, like rehearsing a whole paragraph and talking about the paragraph. I would say break it down into 3 to 6 key points. Three is something that human brain remembers. 3 points. 6 points when you're explaining complex concepts. So 3 or 6, or some people like rule of 5. Okay. See what suits you, see what works for you. But emphasize 5 key points to remember, 3 key things to take away. That emphasizes your message. Okay. And infographics. Nowadays, because of technology, we have so many tools which are out there which you can use. Or if you don't have those hi-fi tools, don't worry about them. Use your PowerPoint and use your flow charts, your pie charts in such a way that you create lovely infographic of the message that you want to deliver and take them through that particular infographic itself. That itself will deliver the message for you. Okay. And that will also ensure that you're not missing anything. You'll cover all the points. It will look pretty and everyone will be engaged throughout your presentation. Lastly, ensure visuals are relevant. Now, this is more relevant when it's a PowerPoint presentation, either by putting too many words or making it too descriptive or putting images everywhere and trying to distract because people don't know where to look. So when you're using visuals, make sure they're relevant. I have a video that I have shared yesterday or day before on all my social media platforms, and it's based on 80-20 presentation rule. And that 80-20 presentation is based on a Pareto principle. And that's what I've applied to presentation skills. So 20% on the slides or 20% of information which you're sharing and 80% will be your knowledge. But when it comes to visuals, only 20% on the slides, be it your text, be it your infographic images. Don't overpopulate your slides. Otherwise, people are going to end up reading and not listening to what you're saying. And if they had to read, you could have even shared the presentation with them beforehand and not bothered with your presentation. So always remember visuals, relevant, and don't put too many images. Put images that are relevant. For example, if it's going to be a tip, I would have used a tip in the corner to say tip and use your transitions. Be creative if you can. So when you're talking about a tip, that comes up, that transition comes up, that animation comes up, and that makes it more engaging because things will pop up as you're talking. Okay, and they know what to focus on. So make it as interesting as you can. So for today's presentation, today's video, We've covered content structure, audience awareness, verbal communication, non-verbal communication, and use of visual aids. For the next part of the presentation skills, we are going to cover the remaining 5 points, which I will share with you in that video. So stay tuned for my next video on presentation skills. For now, this is all I have to share. I hope this helped you. If it did, please like this video and share it with your colleagues and friends so it benefits them. Because remember, I always like to empower and encourage fellow physios and people who come in touch with me. By that, we are creating a ripple effect. This is your Priya Physio signing off for now. But comment below and let me know if this video was useful or if there is anything more that you want me to cover in presentation skills, and if there's anything specific you want me to cover. Ta-da, bye.